everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, great. So, good afternoon, everyone. As we highlight the MLK Campus-wide Celebration keynote event, we want to thank you for joining us today. The MLK Campus-wide Celebration Week is an initiative coordinated by partners across campus, focused on ideals and concepts of justice, equity, and community. Coretta Scott stated, "I am convinced the women of the world, united without any regard for national and radical dimensions, can become a most powerful force for international peace and brotherhood." Therefore, the theme of our 2024 celebration is amplifying the voices of women of color. And the question we have posed as an MLK Week reflection is, who inspires you in the journey to make a positive impact? I myself, along with my co-host, will be leading you through the evening event. We will start by introducing ourselves, sharing a bit more about the week's purpose, events, and then welcome our keynote speakers and take us through the allocated time together. We will then have a brief intermission before welcoming our first-year MLK scholars and share their reflections from their civil rights tour. So, my name is Sarabia Zambele, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm a senior majoring in architectural studies and minoring in French. I'm the president of MSA and the director of ASA. I'm also a Gold Scholar and a part of the first gen org on campus. I'll be one of your hosts, as mentioned before, and to address the question posed earlier, my parents and my humble upbringing inspired my journey to make a positive impact in the world. They've instilled in me to always give back and to help others, and this has inspired me to venture into architecture, but more specifically urban planning as a career so that I can serve the underprivileged communities through affordable housing and bettering the quality of their lives.
And welcome, everyone. My name is Marcia Dawson. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and I serve as the interim director for the BIPOC Community Center and the dean of students for the Office of Student Affairs and Campus Life. To address the question, which we have posted in front, and we really encourage anyone to also write a note or post it and answer that question. But to address the question of who inspires me on my journey to make a positive impact, and recognizing that leaders come in many forms, positions, areas, and places, I am constantly inspired by other leaders with similar passion and vision. I am also inspired by individuals who demand respect and lead with kindness. A smile, a reassurance, a check-in, an invitation, a good old debate, or an outright holding me accountable. Bonnie? But with compassion, always doing it with compassion. As a heart-first leader, that is what drives me to continue to make a positive impact. And I can't forget my aunties, as we would say. I was raised by a lot of female, a lot of strong women around me, and each one of them challenged me every day, do a lot of the things, hold me accountable, all of those things. So those are the ones that continue to inspire my journey. Let's get back to it. As a committee for MLK Week, we invite students, faculty, and staff to host events that recognize these ideals, provide a platform to articulate one's personal perspective, and create the space to analyze interconnected social systems critiqued and highlighted by Dr. King's philosophy and their relation to our modern-day social justice issues. This year, as indicated, the theme is amplifying the voices of women of color, and the celebration week is composed of 13 events, including the 2 beautiful events we have planned for you this evening. But before we get started, we would like to take a moment to thank the committee for their wonderful work in coordinating such an eventful week. So please help me give a round of applause once I say the names. Applause to Cliff Simon, Vital, Jess Shapiro, Dan DeCaria, Shadavia Wallace, and Lauren Goldberg. And a special thank you to the BIPOC Unity Queer student educators, Ashanti, Chris, Labori, Leticia, Leticia and Kaylee, along with the Student of Color Coalition Organization, Island Fusion and Pulse Hip Hop Dance, and the SLI student team. All the Ithaca College presenters also played a role, and a thank you to the panelists and the many others that helped to bring this week to life. So go team, let's go. I would now like to briefly welcome Cliff Simon to the stage to introduce themselves and briefly speak about the upcoming events we have for the rest of the week.
Thank you, everyone who have attended the many events that we hosted this week, and the many events that are still to come, particularly highlighting some of the SLI workshops that we've hosted, and some big, pardon me, I lost my place in. Oh yes, sorry. Some big events that we've had that had distinguished guests attend. We also would like to welcome you all to attend the remaining events that are coming up this week. And as you all know, most of our events are SLI workshops and are a series of interactive workshops as well to help students and staff and faculty develop and refine their personal leadership skills. Starting tonight, after this keynote series, we have the MLK Scholars presentation. Stick around for that, you will not want to miss it. Tomorrow at 12 p.m. we have another SLI talking about racial microaggressions in Clark Lounge. Then the Island Fusion Pulse MLK Dance Workshop happening in Joe at 6 p.m. We also have the MLK Shabbat service and dinner happening in Muller Chapel, hosted by ICLL. And I'd like to highlight a one-of-a-kind podcasting experience that will have you immerse yourself in a podcast crafted by BIPOC and QTPOC creatives. This activity is hosted by an IC alum, so keep an eye out for that and attend if you can. And Saturday we have our annual MLK Day of Service. We'll be supporting the Ithaca Youth Center. It is not too late to sign up if anyone is still interested. Do check out IC Engage for registration. Cool. So, thank you for those who have continued to engage with us. We encourage you all to attend more of the fantastic events that we have slated. And as we work together to honor and celebrate Dr. King's legacy, his teaching, and specifically amplifying women's voices through intersectional discussions, whether that's talking about justice, equity, and community. And I will pass things back on to our host.
So this is like an interaction.
Okay, so are we ready? Yes. Are we focused? Are we feeling grateful? Are we excited?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good. So we want to just keep that energy, you know, just a little more. So we're going to have our lovely IC alums this evening. And yes, they graduated from Ithaca College. They have paper to prove it. So I would read their bios and then stop talking and let them come on the stage. So our first keynote speaker of the night is Cypress Afamai. Let me reset that. Okay. Brathwaite, pronouns they, them, is a Trinidadian multimedia artist and interdisciplinary scholar. Their creative theorizing is rooted in ancestral memory, keeping illicit exploration and freedom dreaming. Weaving wisdom from their practice as doula, herbalist, facilitator, and student of the IFA, their work serves to encourage themselves and others to reclaim the power of our bodies and imaginations. They create portals for people to rechannel our energy for productions for the oppressor into creations for ourselves, our communities, and our lineages. Cypress received their BA in Queerness and Black Identity Politics through Ithaca College's Integrative Studies program. A poet at heart, Cypress is their ancestors' baby. So please help me welcome Cypress to the stage.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Cypress Miami Brathwaite. Thank you for having me. I love the introduction of who inspires us, and I'm going to continue that with giving homage to the beings and entities that enable for me to be here. So I'm really grateful for my ancestors. I'm grateful to my own Ori, my head I'm grateful for my friends that make my life sweet and nourish me. Special shout out to my friend Taylor, and also to my friend Daniela Rivero, who helped me spend 2 hours with me, helping me to refine this message that I have here today. Hey, let's get going. So, where do we go from here? Published in 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. frames the musings of what would be his final book with the question, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? I think continuously asking ourselves this question will clarify our path to liberation more than an answer could. I think the true magic of the functionality of that question is activated through present embodiment, not forecasting. Colonization hijacks our bodies and then our imaginations. As astrologer and cultural critic Dana Lynn Knuckles reminds us, revolution begins in the body. Take a moment to tune into your breath. Don't try to change it, just observe it. Now I welcome you to elongate your breath, breathing in as deeply as you can and exhaling as deeply as you can. In Yoruba culture, we have a saying that says, as long as there is breath, there is hope. Oh, it looks like a saying. Oh well. I entitled this talk, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos and Community, an Indigenous Black queer feminist response. But I am not here to give you an answer. I am not in a position to give you an answer. I am positioned from the collective conscience, and from there I will respond. But my response will always be a call. It will always be a question back. The answer is embedded in our actions. The answer is created as we go. In a recent Instagram Live, using the sidereal astrological framework, Divination for Liberation, Dana Lynn Knuckles explains that oppressive systems infantilize us by making us distrustful of our own bodies, abilities, imaginations, and ways of knowing, so that we are dependent on the oppressor to teach us how to act, who to trust, and what is the truth. They weaken our ability to organize by convincing us that if the answer is not given to us, if the plan is not clearly laid out for us, there is nothing we can do except wait for one to appear, like children who have been indoctrinated to sit still and quietly in their chairs until instruction is given. I respond to this call, where do we go from here, with a poem. Not from a place of definite conclusion, but from the crossroads in which living well and in balance are birthed through chaos and community. My dear friend, Gabrielle Tola, a profound astrologer, hold up, y'all. These slides are out of order somehow. Okay, we'll make it work. All is well. So yes, my dear friends, Gabrielle Dolan, a profound astrologer, poet, singer-songwriter, IC alum, and Bold Scholar, wrote a few weeks ago, I feel that these days I see the word community be thrown around a whole lot, and it is more in a curated sense. Community is also the things that we do not want to confront. I use this quote to ground us in the liberatory capacity of rooting our critique in care, redefining our relationship to chaos, our expectations of ourselves, and thereby our responsibility to community. With a quick Google search of the word chaos, one will come across the associated words lawlessness, confusion, unpredictability, disarray, entropy, madness. Entropy, the measure of a system's thermal energy per unit temperature that is unavailable for doing useful work. Who defines what is useful work? Pathologization, which goes hand in hand with infantilization, is a foundational tool in the repertoire used by dominant culture to justify the use of violence against the people they attempt to subject. From drapetomania, a made-up mental illness that diagnosed enslaved Africans who fled from slavery as mad, manic, or crazy for not being satisfied with the conditions of enslavement, to the requirement of psychiatric evaluation for transgender people to get gender-affirming care, all the while cisgender women are afforded statistically far more dangerous procedures without question of their sanity. The metric of madness has always been used to uphold Euro-patriarchal colonial values. In a review of the book, How to Go Mad Without Losing Your Mind, Black Madness and the Black Radical Creativity by Lamar Jarrell Bruce, Ismatu Gwendolyn asks us, what use is measured rationality when to be reasonable means dying quietly all the time? Colonizers do to people what they did to the land, what they did to themselves first. Lamar Jarrell Bruce distinguishes between lowercase r reason, a generic process of cognition within a given system of logic, and capital R reason as a proper noun. As Ismatu explains, reason, capital R, is a school of thought conceived by white world makers to decide who is compliant in their world makings and their understandings, and who is deviant and thus dangerous to these understandings. In my words, capital R reason is the masquerade of the oppressor's desires for control via hoarding capital. Reason has less to do with cognition and more to do with policing our bodies and imaginations. In Yuruku, an African-centered critique of European cultural thoughts and behavior, Marimba Ani explains how reason becomes a function of control from the inside out. The mind is trained from birth to function, to think in terms of dichotomies or splits. The splits become irreconcilable, antagonistic opposites. The superiority of the intellect over the emotional is established. Harmony can only be established when the positive term of the dichotomy controls or destroys the negative term, phenomena, or entity, when reason controls emotion, both in person and in the state, end quote. From this mindset, Blackness, queerness, indigeneity, femininity, compassion, and oftentimes truth is handled as something to be controlled and destroyed through whiteness, heteronormativity, hypermasculinity, colonialism. This is the thought process that fuels mass incarceration. This is the thought process that fuels land theft from indigenous peoples. This is the thought process that fuels the college-industrial complex and increasing legislation that takes away the autonomy of people who are able to get pregnant. This is the thought process that criminalizes masking since it's not conducive to surveillance, although we are currently experiencing the second highest wave of a deadly and mass disabling virus since 2020. This is the thought process that normalizes genocide. We cannot think our way to freedom. Freedom is an embodied movement. We must feel the heaviness of our grief, the activation of our anger, the expanse of our love, and move with them if we want to get free. Coincidentally, reason renders these emotions unavailable for doing useful work. I remember a time I was in the backseat of my father's car. He came to pick me up from school and we weren't taking our usual route home. "Where are we going?" I asked him curiously. "Mad," he responded plainly. We live in a crazy making culture. A culture that normalizes insane violence while weaponizing the word crazy to discredit revolutionaries. I am crazy, as in I imagine and fight for a world beyond capitalist colonial subjugation. I am crazy, as in I can hear the spirits of the land and my ancestors, and I use them with respect. I am crazy, as in I welcome the fullness of my being beyond what is projected onto my dark-skinned, breast-bearing body. I may be crazy, but that don't make me wrong. Marsha P. Johnson, rest in power. I think about the disarray and unpredictability of how plants grow. I think about the ancestral medicine garden at the SD Street Free Community Garden right here in Ithaca that I've helped to tend with other Black and Indigenous transgender earth workers and creatives. I think about the white woman neighbor that called the police on a Black child existing in this space that was created to primarily serve Black and brown people. I think about how that same neighbor complained to the bank that owns the land that the medicine garden was unkept, unruly, chaotic, if you will, because we did not force the plants to grow in unnatural, strict, single-file lines, but we allowed them to intermingle and exist in their collaborative differences wholly. To her eye, Black and brown gender non-conforming bodies communing with each other without supervision on land with plants growing wildly becomes a signal of chaos that threatens white conceptions of world order. Embracing queerness as a politic is about resensitizing ourselves to the possibilities unavailable to us through reason. To be mad is to be deeply engaged with the unseen. The same goes for queerness. It is the embodiment of the then and there that in the here and now. The bridge between chaos and community is queer. As poet Brandon Wint writes, not queer like gay, queer like escaping definition, queer like some sort of fluidity and limitlessness all at once, queer like a freedom too strange to be conquered, queer like the fearlessness to imagine what love can look like and pursue it. I wasn't sure how to title this talk because in so many ways, queerness and Blackness are placeholders for the creative force of indigeneity as it travels across time and place. And the values that are modernly grouped under womanist, feminist, queer theory are values that Indigenous cultures had and have enabled them to thrive for centuries, and they still do. At this crossroads, spirit and matter are still intact, and emotionality, instincts, intuition, and reason, lowercase r, are seen as a reservoir of complementary and necessary parts of the whole in which our creativity can spark like a dialectic, to quote Audre Lorde. At this crossroads, quote, moments of clarity unravel as lessons, cautionary tales and secrets. It is a site where Black life and Black livingness oscillate between clarity and opacity, and this oscillation illuminates a politic of liberation that rests on ambivalence. Ambivalence, unresolved contradictions, is an important feature of Black Atlantic livingness because it signals the working through and towards liberation. End quotes. Catherine McKendrick and Dear April, The Aesthetics of Black Miscellanea. This is where welcoming the reality of community beyond a curated sense is essential. We've been taught that only focusing on the good is the proper way to honor the legacy of our late leaders. The reality is, Black liberation struggles, any liberation struggle, will continue to loop in this space of not truly free as long as we continue to prioritize polish over substance. It is destructive to only talk about the good. That is no different from the dangers of revisionist history that we are seeing with state bans of critical race theory. I call on us to reflect on the ways we hamper our own movements by ignoring the vastness of racialized topics, including colorism, featureism, fatphobia, transphobia, xenophobia, ableism, etc., which all have a root in the colonial desire for domination. I think about how powerful it would have been if the Montgomery Improvement Association rallied behind Claudette Colvin instead of propping up Rosa Parks as a catalyst for the bus boycotts. If dynamics of colorism and ageism weren't pushed to the margins to center respectability. I recently learned that prior to her work with the bus boycotts, Rosa Parks dedicated much of her community organizing to ending the culture of rape and violence against Black girls and women and providing support to survivors. Raise your hand if you knew that. Right. How powerful it would have been if the movement recognized this organizing work as essential to the liberation of Black people. For that to have happened, people would have had to confront the harsh truths around the misogynoir within the community, because it was not only white men that were on the list of assaulters. I think about the overlooked work and vision of Bayard Rustin and Marsha P. Johnson and countless Black, queer, trans people, and where we might be today if civil rights leaders didn't align themselves with patriarchy and queerphobia. But more importantly, I think about the communities that grew them, and what if they didn't align themselves with those values of domination? It is easy to say that they did this for the sake of strategy, that it was the reasonable thing to do, but in reality, it was also emotional. Some people believe that in respecting my rights, they will lose some of their own, but equality is an endless cake. The more we eat from it, the more there is to share. Cecilia and Julie, rest in power. It is easy to say shoulda, coulda, woulda. It is redeeming to know that we have the opportunity to choose better today. Every aspect of the movement should center those in the margins of the margins. Western elitist institutions have people thinking that keeping the infrastructure of white supremacist capitalism and inviting minorities to partake is the work. No, centering means radically shifting our focal point of credibility from colonial systems to the locales where those who have been exiled by those systems are actively creating better ways of living. That is where the real work happens. Think about an essay written the old school way, on a piece of paper. The margins are for edits, for added thoughts, for refinement as we go. What happens in the margins makes the paper as a whole better. Societal margins are for community nourishment. They are where pollination is the metric of power, not subjugation. From there, to quote Catherine McKendrick, we can share how we know, rather than incessantly listing what or who or why we know. What would it look like to embrace the messiness of working through and towards liberation? How would our culture change if we started valuing the chaos of inked up rough drafts over as much as the pristine final product? What would it look like in action to value the networks of people that nourish leaders as much as we value leaders? So much wisdom can be created when we approach things from a place of wonder, slow exploration, and collaboration. With the lessons of the land, queerness as a method of remembering ourselves whole, and madness as a practice of being courageous enough to feel deeper and imagine further. Where do we go from here? I welcome you to tune into your breath. Make your inhale and exhale as elongated as possible. Now let us practice our call and response. I will say, the revolution will not be perfect, and you will respond with the second clause on the screen. There are 3 different clauses. Ready? The revolution will not be perfect. The revolution will not be perfect.
Mistakes will be made, mistakes will be learned from.
The revolution will not be perfect.
And our imperfection will not define us.
Lovely. Now, when I say, as long as we have breath, I welcome you all to respond with, there is hope. As long as we have breath,
There is hope.
Gotcha. Thank you. I have an activity planned. Okay. I will explain it and then we'll figure out breaking up into groups afterwards. So this activity is inspired by something that Alexis Pauline does when she gets invited to do keynotes. So together we will be using 4 Black queer feminist texts, and we will create an oracle as a poetic practice of working through and towards liberation. We will break up into groups, and someone will take a copy of the book or PDF from the center of the circle, whichever one you feel called to. This person will flip through the book without looking at the pages and stop at random. From there, they will read the page or a portion of it, whatever words, phrases, sentences pop out at you. And everybody in the group will listen. And we will do this 3 times with 3 different people, ensuring that everybody else is being present with themselves and their bodies and listening to the person reading out loud. And after the 3rd person goes, we will discuss what comes up for us. And essentially, we're creating an oracle to respond to the question, where do we go from here? Looking at whatever tools and revolutionary perspectives or methods that the oracle offers to us. The oracle will not be didactic. This is a practice of embracing the oscillation between clarity and ambiguity. So I want you to lean into how it makes you feel. Has it brought up a memory? Is it orienting you towards a longing that you've suppressed? And think about what constellations can be drawn between the offerings of each book. The oracle gives us data points, but it is up to us to create the functions that are applicable to our respective spheres of influence as we work towards liberation. And then afterwards, we will share out to the larger audience either a sentence or 2 of a book that popped out or a paraphrasing of the group's reflection. So as getting into that, something I want y'all to keep in mind for the oracle to activate is to slow down. Let the wisdom reveal itself to you. Let it echo as you move throughout your day, week, month. Do not rush to insert meaning if it still feels nebulous. It's okay to sit with it. Also, to approach with curiosity and openness. I know this might be a little woo-woo for some of y'all, but I ask you to approach it with, well, what if we're not engaging in this oracle as a speaker of divine providence? What if we engage with it as a speaker of relevant randomness? I want you to be present with each other, be cautious of how long you're taking in the space, talking, embrace the awkward silence that may come to allow for people who may process slower to speak, and listen to your comrades just as we've been taught to listen to professors. Be present with your body. What sensations arise? What sensations are you pressing, suppressing? And lastly, embrace ambiguity.